We are a global champion for women's human rights, women and girls' human rights. And what we do actually is that we find and we fund women's human rights advocates. And the second thing that we do, which is really important, is that we amplify their voices on the issues that are important to them. And what we actually feel that distinguishes us from others is that we build social movements, and specifically those social movements that are challenging the status quo. Our belief is that in a society that we want to build, the vision that we have is where there is zero violence against women. We work on economic and political justice and empowerment because we believe that women ought to be part of the decision making of societies, and when the women contribute also their ideas and are involved in the shaping of the world, the things that we need to happen in the world, whether those things are addressing education, they are addressing other social issues, or they are addressing safety in society, it really means that you are taking into account all of the people that make the humanity. Secondly, we work also in the area of reproductive health, sexual and reproductive health, and rights. And in this area, it's really important also to see and protect women's self-wishes, women's bodies, women's ability to make decisions for themselves. In reality, the women who work at the grassroots are very poorly funded. Normally, they are invisible to big donors. Secondly, because they work very much at the grassroots level, sometimes the people think that they will not be able to be impactful. And sometimes they think that they are too small to be funded with large amounts of money. This is not true at all because they are rooted at the grassroots, and that means that they can be able to impact social change at systematic level, a systemic level. They can be able to reach the actual people that are affected. So they reach, and the fact that they belong to those communities makes them very important, and it makes them the first group of people that should be funded for making a great change. The second thing is that even though they work at local level, there are many different women's groups that work at different local levels, which means that if you're looking for scale and scale that reaches people where they are, it is these women's groups that really make the biggest difference because there are many, small but many, and that means that they are more effective than being large and only aiming at a higher level. And the third thing is that they are very accountable in terms of being able to use money in the best way because they give of their own labor. Very often they are volunteers and they give of their own labor free. It should not be that way, but very often it happens that way. And secondly, they really care and they are able to stretch every dollar that they get to the maximum. We make the biggest impact and they make the biggest impact using their own visions and their own innovation rather than being directed by a project from outside. Government begins from local leadership. So if women and grassroots groups are able to effect change at a very local level, right from grassroots groups of working at school level, at the district level, at the location of where the people are situated, those kind of things percolate into the rest of the society. And many of the women that we work with do not just work to effect change at the grassroots level. They do understand that they are part of nations and they are part of regions. What they really want to do is to be able to interpret things that can happen at policy level to the people so that when laws and policies are made at the national level, people can be able to claim them and use them. Because you can have those laws and policies made, or even you can have protocols that are accepted at the United Nations and signed on by the nations, but the people at local level don't know what those are. Many of the groups that we do help to domesticate these complicated tools that happen at the international level, at the national level, and at the regional level. One is that there is such a consciousness in every part of the world. There is not a single part of the world where you will not find people, women who understand that they are equal human beings and women's rights are human rights in some form or another. I think that's a great progress because what that means is that women have been able to move the agenda of human rights of women being a private agenda, things such as domestic violence being limited to the household into the public and political agenda. And I think that today, when we see large movements of women speaking up, whether we are talking about Me Too movements in the West, or we are talking about Unamenos in Latin America, and several other those kind of forms of movements that exist in regions and in nations, that shows that women have really progressed. We also can look at the other side of the coin and say there are many achievements that women have we thought we had achieved that get rolled back. If you look in the area of sexual reproductive health, it's really shameful that today we exist in the United States with something that is called the gag rule, which comes up over and again and which compromises the health of women. It compromises information to young people. It compromises how nations and societies are able to budget for the health, reproductive health of women in every place of the world. This is a rollback because so much has been achieved, but people are rolling it back. Here in the United States, for example, if we look at what is happening in regards to individual states pulling back opportunities for women to have access to safe abortion, as has happened in a number of states here in the US, that is pulling the effect back. It's pulling the effect back because people do not understand the big picture of the total health of women, and they would like to moralize only one section or certain sections of what they believe in rather than look at the total health of women and what women face in their own reproductive health. So there are things that are going backwards, and there are things that have been really hard to achieve. We haven't achieved gender gap in pay. We haven't eliminated domestic violence. We haven't eliminated discrimination at place of work. We haven't eliminated sexual abuse. But I think that the fact that we know that these things exist and the fact that we are providing live data today to be able to say, this is what is happening. We don't have enough data, we can be able to say that. But the fact that we are providing data to back up where the problems are. My vision and my focus is on the focus of the young women or young people in general, because a lot of young people now are growing up in a community where they can see these things and their analysis is not based just on their belief system or on their isolation as being culturally grounded just in one place. Many of them, because of ability to have more communication that is beyond face-to-face communication, they have been able to learn a lot more. And I think that building and believing in the leadership that will come out of the young people that is much more inclusive and crosses borders is important. The second thing that I think is important for us to do is to embrace, as much as we do social analysis, to be able to embrace the use of technology in a good way. What technology used will help us to cross a lot of barriers and to really get information as fast as possible to far away places that we could not reach by a single letter or a telephone. And so there are advantages that we can use, much as we are aware that there are also a lot of disadvantages, many of which are popular now, popularly known in the world, whether it is fear of being hacked or fear of people being violated also by the use of technology. We know that this is also present. But if we can encourage the good for technology, it can make a lot of difference. The third area is access to education. Education is an important aspect of our people's own development. And there is a big emphasis on universal access to education for all people. But besides that, there isn't campaigns that have done to ensure there's girls' education in many communities where it was lacking, and that women have access to higher education, and specifically in the STEM area, is really important, and that should be furthered and scaled to the extent to which it begins to make a difference. Because I do believe that our vision for a new era is to be able to engage a lot of diverse young people all over the world, women and men together, to build large movements that are influential and that can be able to make a difference in their communities, in their own communities, but also in the communities beyond their own geography or their own culture.